presentation. Thank you. Michelle Clark for the Yaldhurst Rural Residents Association. Sorry, my heart sank when all this paper turned up. It's really good just to email them through, and because they can just be put on our screens.
Fair enough too.
So much easier to try and save trees.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Thank
Apologies, we only got some information 5 p.m. last night.
Right.
So.
Thank you, welcome.
I was going to say thank you, and I don't have an expectation for you to be going through all of that information for this. It's really just to give you some background, and I know that we don't have a lot of time as well, so I'll cut into it. I know I talk quite quickly, so apologies, but it's a lot for us to get through, so hopefully I cover it off okay. I am Michelle Clark. I'm speaking on behalf of Yara in the interest of the Yaldhurst Memorial Hall. The local Yaldhurst Community Hall is a living memorial that was a result of the community gifting land and raising funds as part of the pound for pound subsidy run grant by the government at the time. It's designed to commemorate and remember those who have given their lives for our community and for the life we've got today. The fundraising efforts from the local community at that point were massive. The hall itself was specified to be something vitally living, something from its very nature of its use and enjoyment would ever keep before us and the generations that follow us that freedom of life and personal expression for which our men and women fought and fell. The type of memorial which best embodies this ideal is a community centre, or as I've just heard before, a community hub might be the new terms, where the people can gather for social, educational, cultural and recreational purposes. Part of the condition of the subsidy was that the hall needed to be handed over to the local governing authority and that due provision was made to the satisfaction of the government for maintenance and the upkeep of the memorial and for its management and a permanent functioning community centre. It was clear that this was to be a lifetime memorial. If we jump to today, at the time of the earthquake, the hall had insurance payments coming out of its accounts as part of the operating expenses of the facility. After the earthquake, the council approached the community to ask for what was to be done with the hall with an intent to demolish it. We then explained that the hall was under the ownership of the council. This took a long time to get there, but we're there now and it's all agreed that that's where the ownership sits. The council has since given a recommendation of demolishment for the following reasons. Despite paying insurance, as we know, the council was underinsured on all of the buildings, and unfortunately no insurance has been allocated to the Yaldhurst community. The council was not aware of the ownership, so missed the building off any funding grants or any plans that were available at the time. A first analysis of the structural integrity gave the hall 6%, and the first repair costing sat at 1.5 million. We have since, at our own cost, which has been quite extensive, and time, we have gained independent advice with architects, fire engineers, and a QS who have been able to take a closer look. And I would say with greater knowledge now, after 9 years on, of the types of buildings it's established that the hall is now at a minimum of 45% of NBS. And so has spent 8 years not being used, cleaned or maintained unnecessarily. It is disappointing that we've had to spend so much money on a council-owned property to get there, but we do believe it's been for the right outcome. We've also gained new costings, at which sits the total maintenance work, which we'd like to point out is about strengthening and not repair, at between $540,000 and $600,000. This is $900,000 less than originally planned. And I'd also like to point out that a third of this actually includes simple works on accessibility and fire, for example, upgrades to accessibility and deferred maintenance such as painting, which would not be considered as a result of the earthquake. We have no great needs as a community to have a fancy new facility. All we're asking for is to get our building back to what it was. We've also been told there is and isn't funding available to demolish the hall. This has gone back and forth quite often, with estimated costs being between 80 to 130k, and being told that it's part of the plan and it's not at different times. There's also an expense for the plaques and to be going somewhere, obviously as a memorial, but again we'd like to point out the entire hall is actually a memorial. We believe that the investment of 540 to 600k with the funding that we've looked at that could be available is completely financially viable. I can in Q&A go into the community need that might be available, because I know that that was in my pre-reading and my submission, and I'm really happy to talk to that and why, from a mental health point of view, we believe it's vital to be looking after our community. The other thing to talk to is the hole in the roof. So there was a hole in the roof, and that was prior to the earthquake, and it's never been repaired, and it's left to it's obviously resulted in water damage. We have had a meeting with Karen McConaughey and Mike Sheffield in April, which established that the cost had never been investigated, and that would be investigated and we would look at funding. We still haven't heard back about that, and we're not certain if it's occurred, so today our number one request is for funding so that we can stop the additional damage to the hall. There is a trust held by the council in the long-term plan that's also been another gift from the community that Mr Crawford left. This is for capital improvements to the hall of $11,000. Although I appreciate it's not a lot of money, I'm sure Mr Crawford would be devastated to know the money he donated in good faith was not used in any way to support the hall. I would like at this point in time to thank the community board and for the heritage community who's been very, very supportive of our applications so far. The heritage team is very, very passionate, I know, with the help of Jimmy, thank you very much, and believe that this hall would fit in lines with what is needed by the community. Ultimately, we're asking for the immediate repair of the roof and the long-term maintenance plan of the hall to be included in the plan. We believe the Yaldhurst community has been told many different versions of information and has really had to fight to get some focus here in its community. All we're asking for at the moment is not to be completely missed off the council radar and to have a revisitation of the hall. Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question? You know, the basis for the council owning it, would there be anything to stop us providing it to the community? I mean, so providing it to is there anything that would stand in the way legally of transferring the ownership to the community in some way, shape or form?
Yeah, I would say I'm not an expert, but from talks that would be a consideration.
Yeah.
I guess the thing we'd need to look at is we would want some kind of backup plan to make sure that, you know, this needs to be ongoing from just my generation. So I'm really passionate, but we need to make sure that someone looks after that going forward.
No, I agree, and that may not be a solution. I just wanted to know whether...
No, and it's something, if it came to that, we would look at doing that because we believe in it that much.
Yeah. Tim and Aaron.
Yeah, thank you.
Jimmy.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
And, kia ora, Mike. Your page one on your request for funding, and under our page 54, under background, third point starts, the council forgot its ownership of the hall. Is that because the community have been running the hall without burden prior to the earthquake, without burden to the council? Or?
No, that's the interesting thing. It was a lot of it was actually run through the council. There was expenses being done as well. So you'd need to go back and ask other people on. It seems very confusing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Okay.
We agree.
Now, sorry. The $11,000 you mentioned, that's sitting somewhere.
So in the back page of an annual plan, Vicky, could you talk to that?
And our list of funds and finance and performance is one that's called the Yaldhurst Community Hall Fund, and it can only be applied for that purpose.
So we could probably do just to fix the hole in the roof just with that, maybe.
I think it's not quite enough.
Well, I think it would be enough for the roof. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the interest off that or the actual fund that would be utilised. But you know, even if it's $100 towards it, it would be helpful.
Yeah, because the hole, water damage is horrendous.
And that was from before the earthquake. Yeah.
Thank you.
Aaron.
Yeah, so just this hall sits on the boundary of two community boards. So Councillor Chen and myself visited there with the heritage team earlier this year, well, a few months ago, and because it was a big surprise to us all what was inside there, because it was set for demolition, and as you can see from these reports, it's not in the condition that was originally thought, so everything's changed. What is inside is a perfect example and snapshot of 1950s. There's nothing else like it anywhere in this city. And so when this is restored, because the restoration's now in the hundreds of thousands, not the millions, so it changes everything completely, it will be a perfect snapshot of what Christchurch looked like at that part of our history. So it'll be a great metro facility. It'll be used by people from across the city for lots of things beyond just the local community.
Advocacy rather than a question.
I was going to say, you should have done my presentation.
It kind of contradicts your community board submission on the matter too.
It was because they weren't there. Only Jimmy and I were the only two electeds that were there. Even Mike was left off the list. And Mike, I think, got his first pash there. So, sorry, it was someone's wedding. It was something, Mike.
Sorry, that's an image I'm just not going to get out of my head.
I've got a minute.
All right,
I would
so,
say that in the costings too, that includes contingency, it includes consent, it includes a lot of fees and additional costs as well, so
Yeah.
hopefully we'd cut that down.
Yeah, Jimmy?
Michelle, just one question Mayor asked already, particularly regarding to the partnership, whether the Yaldhurst Rural, the Resident Association, take the lead, working together with council as a partnership, to kind of to fix, repair this community hall, and in the future, the running this community hall is possible or not?
Yeah, so we would be really open to helping run it. We've got members of the community that want to do that, as well as working together. I guess the thing is it's not our area of expertise in project managing a hall rebuild, and we'd like to think that with the rates we pay and things like that, we would love the council to continue their ownership that's been gifted and the responsibility. But if that's not a possibility, then we would look at other options. Yeah.
Why I ask this question, citywide still quite a few the community hall, there's a partnership. Also, council encourage this partnership.
Yeah, absolutely.
And encourage the community can take the proactive the way.
And that would be our expectation too, is that if we're asking for funding, then we need to we need to stump up on the other side too, and absolutely, yeah, completely agree.
Well, thank you very much for your submission
Thank
and
you.
for all of the work that you've done. I mean, you're obviously passionate about it, so much appreciated.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.